sister-in-law announces her pregnancy at my anniversary party and makes me cry because she knows I had been struggling with conceiving, and my in-laws accuse me of stealing my sister-in-law's thunder for attention and behaving like a child. I, 27 female, have been struggling with conceiving for a while now. My husband and I have been trying for almost 8 months, but with no luck, and have decided that we're going to get fertility tests in a few weeks. We haven't done that so far, out of nerves, but it's about time we take the test. He and I have been together for 6 years, married for 3. I really want to be a mother, and everyone who knows me knows that all I've ever really wanted is to have a family of my own. My husband is also equally into the idea, and this just felt like the right time to start trying, but it's just not happening for us right now, and it's getting kind of frustrating since we've been doing everything we can to get pregnant, from medicines to home remedies. Both of us have been on edge for the last couple of months, so we celebrated our wedding anniversary by throwing a big party a couple of days back. We went all out with the party so we could take our minds off things, but it totally backfired, and it's all thanks to my dearest sister-in-law, Jenny, 25 female. About Jenny, she got married a few months ago to her longtime boyfriend, and it was a pretty grand affair. She's a bit of a show-off and kind of holier than thou, but I've never had a problem with her or anyone from my husband's family. This is probably the first time that we're all at odds, and I don't know. It feels wrong and weird. Jenny and I have never been great friends, but we have always been on good terms. However, the incident at my anniversary party messed everything up, and now I don't think I can look at her or my in-laws the same way. For context, my husband's family didn't know that he and I were trying for a baby. We did want to tell them, but after we were unsuccessful for the first couple of months, we decided that we wouldn't tell them anything until we had good news to share with them. My parents didn't know about it either, to be fair, so I thought that was okay. A couple of my friends knew, but they were all busy with their lives, so it wasn't as if I could go to them for advice or bother them by talking about my troubles with conceiving. Then a few days ago, about 4 or 5 days back I suppose, Jenny was visiting us with her husband. Our husbands went out into the garden outside at one point because I'd mentioned that the sprinklers need to be fixed, and Jenny's husband very graciously offered to take a look at it since he was quite handy. So they left me and Jenny in the room. I tried to make small talk with her, but she just straight up asked me what I was so upset about, because she said that she could tell that I was feeling down about something, and she wanted me to share with her. I hesitated and tried to pass it off as nothing, but I guess I had been really upset that day after yet another negative pregnancy test, and I hadn't been able to hide it well. So she insisted that I tell her what was going on with me, and I decided to tell her the truth after she told me that she wanted to help. My husband and I had decided that we were not going to share this with people until we were actually pregnant, but I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. I was already feeling very upset and emotional because I was struggling with conceiving, and it was even more difficult for me to not talk about it to anybody. I couldn't talk about it to my husband because he was going through the same thing, and bringing it up with him repeatedly would just make us both feel bad. So when Jenny asked me, I just told her the truth, that my husband and I were trying to have a baby without thinking of the consequences. I was just desperate to get it off my chest and talk to somebody about this. At the time, she seemed genuinely happy for me and even hugged me and told me that she was so excited to have a baby niece or nephew. But then I told her that we had been struggling for quite some time now, and it was just getting to the both of us, which is why I looked really upset that day. She seemed sympathetic and even offered to take me to a fertility specialist who could help me out, and I thanked her for her concern. But I didn't need that. I just needed somebody to talk to, and I was glad that she was being so helpful and sensitive. Our husbands were in the garden for about half an hour, and as long as they were outside, Jenny and I had a real conversation. It was actually really nice to talk to her because it felt like she really understood what I was saying and was trying her best to be empathetic towards me. By the time my husband came back and we had to drop the topic, I felt considerably better. When they were leaving, Jenny gave me a hug, which she usually doesn't do, and it just felt nice to have a friend to talk to. We didn't talk for the next couple of days, until she came over on the day of our anniversary party. That was 2 days ago, and even when she arrived, she was very nice to me. She hugged me once again and gave me our gift. I thought that we were finally becoming friends, but that didn't last for very long. My husband and I had invited a lot of people to the party. All his family and friends as well as mine were present, and it was actually helping us take our minds off the babies and pregnancy. We were chatting with people, laughing and making jokes, and having a generally fun time. Around an hour into the party, Jenny and her husband walked into the middle of the room and said that they had an announcement to make. My husband looked confused and I froze because I thought that she was going to say something about me and what I had told her just a few days ago. But it was much worse because once everybody was quiet and listening to them, her husband went on to announce that about a week ago, they had found out that they were pregnant and in just 9 months, they would become parents. Everybody who was present there started clapping and cheering for them, and my husband's family went up to her to congratulate her, while the two of us just stood in a corner quietly. Before I knew what I was doing, the tears started flowing down my face, and I had to make a run for it towards the restroom. My husband had seen me crying, and he followed me, but I didn't let him because I wanted a couple of minutes to myself, so I could calm down and not make a scene in front of all our guests. I was trying to process this information and make sense of what was happening while my husband stood outside the door and kept telling me that I was going to be fine and that it would certainly happen for us at some point as well. It was just taking some time, and even if it didn't, we would be fine and we would look into other options, but we would get through it together. His saying that made me feel better, and so I let him in. I told him that Jenny knew that I had been struggling, but he didn't react to it and told me that we could talk about that later. At the time, the only thing that he was worried about was if I was alright or not, and everything else could wait. So we just stood there hugging each other quietly for a few minutes, and that was all I needed to recover from my shock. By the time we came back out, people were done congratulating her, and the attention was back on us, and apparently, everybody had been looking for us. So when we reappeared into the living room, all the eyes were on us, which wasn't ideal because I had been crying and it showed. I had tried my best to make my face look normal, but my mascara had been running like crazy while I was crying and I hadn't been able to get rid of all of it before I came back out. So as soon as people saw me, they started asking me if I was alright and were all very concerned about me. I know I wasn't fooling anyone, but I told everybody that I just felt kinda overwhelmed, which is why I had to take a break, but I was alright. It was a feeble excuse, but I had to say something to get them off my back. Once my husband and I were back, we even went up to Jenny and her husband to congratulate them. She looked upset, but didn't say anything, and we continued with the party. It was difficult, but I think my husband and I tried our best to handle the situation with dignity and grace. I would say that we dealt with things pretty well, even though I had been overcome with emotion in the middle of the party after Jenny's announcement. I didn't let it ruin the evening or get in the way of an otherwise successful evening. My husband and I discussed everything only after the guests had all left and we were in bed all by ourselves. I told him that I had confided in Jenny about us trying to get pregnant when she had visited the other day, so I thought that it was a bit insensitive of her to make this announcement at our anniversary party, knowing that we were suffering and trying to distract ourselves from it. He told me that he agreed with me, and even if I hadn't told her about our struggles with trying to get pregnant before the day of the party, she still shouldn't have made that announcement on the day of our wedding anniversary, because this was a day supposed to be about us, and it was just tacky to make it about herself without even asking us for permission first, and that was a valid point as well. While discussing this, we also realized that when she was consoling me the other day, she already knew she was pregnant at the time, because they had found out about it a week before the day of the party, and we realized that it was a deliberate move on her part to make the announcement at our anniversary party. But we couldn't figure out why she would want to do such a thing and hurt me, because as far as I was concerned, we were never the best of friends, but we were never on bad terms either. My husband and I decided that we had to talk to Jenny about this and confront her about it. We knew that after we discussed things with her, there were only two ways this could go. She could either apologize to us and we could clear the air and move on, or we would have to cut her off. So yesterday, my husband and I decided to make a call to Jenny and talk to her about what had happened at the party. We decided that we were going to do it once we came back from work, but instead, we received a phone call from his parents telling us to come over to their place ASAP for a family meeting. They said that it was urgent, so we decided that we would take a day off work and check out what this was all about. So we went to his parents' place, and everybody was already there. My husband's parents, his grandma as well as Jenny and her husband. Everybody looked very serious, and it felt like I had walked into a courtroom, but the jury had already decided that we were guilty, so we didn't even stand a chance. Jenny was avoiding even looking at us, and I thought that it was strange, but it all started making sense once my husband's parents started talking. They told me that on the day of the party, they had noticed that my husband and I were the only people who left the room after Jenny announced that she was pregnant and didn't even return to the room for a considerable amount of time. They said that even when I did congratulate them, it didn't seem genuine or sincere. I could tell that they were accusing me of something, and I didn't really appreciate it, but I still told them the reason why I had acted that way, as I didn't want to be rude to them. My husband and I told them that we had been trying to get pregnant for a long time, but it wasn't happening for us, so when Jenny made her announcement, it was pretty much the last straw for us, because this anniversary party was supposed to help us to be distracted and not think about pregnancy for a little while. But that didn't work, because Jenny announced that she was pregnant, and everything that we were trying to forget just came rushing back to us. So we got overwhelmed, and I had to leave the room because I started crying, and I didn't want to let anyone see me break down, and so I left. I thought that was enough of an explanation, and it was a pretty valid reason for me to behave the way that I did, so they couldn't possibly argue with it. There was a silence for a while, and my husband and I actually thought that they were going to ask us more about our decision to have a baby, or at least say something positive about it, but they didn't even react to that news and continued to talk about our reaction to Jenny's announcement. After the brief pause, his mother told me that she could understand that I was upset, but I was also an adult, and I had to learn how to regulate and control my emotions and not let them get the better of me, because apparently the way I behaved at the party was just unacceptable. I honestly didn't think that there was anything wrong with the way I acted, and I think we covered it up pretty well after we came back to the living room. We congratulated Jenny and her husband, and we got it over with gracefully. I thought that was enough to compensate. My husband and I argued with them and told them that there was nothing wrong with the way that we had behaved, and anybody else in our place would have probably had a worse reaction and maybe even kicked Jenny and her husband out of the party for making the day all about themselves. I also told them that Jenny had known about our struggles before the party, and in spite of that, she chose to make that announcement, knowing that we were going through something. So if anybody needs to be held accountable, it should be her and not us, because she was the one who did something and made that announcement at a place that she wasn't supposed to. And then, things became kinda chaotic, as Jenny also became part of the argument and started playing the victim, saying that she was hoping that her news would make us feel better, and we know that it would happen for us at some point as well. It was a ridiculous reason, but she was sticking to it, and her parents were talking her up by saying that she was just trying to be nice to us. So we had to suck it up and apologize for what we did. There was a lot of fighting and shouting at one point. His mother screamed at me and said that I had stolen Jenny's thunder on purpose because I was jealous of her, and that's why I had thrown a temper tantrum and started crying, so I could get some attention and sympathy from everybody present at the party. I was very upset when she said that, and so was my husband. So he told them that if that's what they thought about me, then we were probably better off cutting all ties with them. We left the house and came back home, still discussing whatever they had said to us, and the audacity that it took to play the victim, knowing that you had done something wrong and had screwed up a happy day for somebody on purpose for no real reason. We didn't expect to hear from them for at least a couple more days, but then Jenny sent my husband a message saying that she was hurt and disappointed by the way that we were acting because she only wanted to make us feel better with her own announcement and had no intention of making us feel bad. She also said that she didn't think I would take it so hard and start crying just because she was pregnant. She believed that it was a reason to be happy for everyone, not just her, and she wanted to share that happiness with us, but I had spoiled it by misinterpreting her intentions. She said that she felt insulted and also kind of agreed with her mother that I had stolen her thunder because anniversaries come every year, but she can only announce her first pregnancy once, so I should have been happy for her and tried to understand the reason behind what she did, instead of being so self-involved that I couldn't think past myself and my struggles. I really don't know what to make of that, so I wish to ask, am I the a-hole for crying and leaving the room when my sister-in-law announced her pregnancy? Hey, I just want to thank everybody who commented on our post and reached out to us to support us. I know pregnancy isn't easy, and struggling to get pregnant at all is not something that I'm going through on my own. It feels nice to know the stories of other women who went through the exact same thing that I'm going through right now. I just want to say that motherhood is beautiful and I will love my baby even if I don't get pregnant myself and end up opting for surrogacy or maybe adoption. It's all just the same to us. The point is that our child will always be loved and cared for. We are going to get tested tomorrow, and after that, we'll finally know what we have to do. So wish us luck. And now coming to the situation with my husband's family. There has been no improvement yet, but thanks to all the comments here, my husband and I at least know that we were not the ones at fault here, so we have nothing to apologize for. And if they want to stay in touch with us, then Jenny is the one who is going to have to apologize. Personally, I would want all of them to apologize to us, because the way that they were just flinging accusations at us when we went to their house was horrible. They had no right to speak to us that way, especially when we were the victims of this mess. Even now thinking about it makes me want to call them up and give them a piece of my mind, because they had said a lot of terrible things. I haven't heard from any of them yet, but it's been 2 days, so I guess they're going to wait for us to reach out to them before they do anything. I wasn't surprised that Jenny did what she did, but to be honest, I didn't expect her parents to be just as entitled and delusional as her. And my husband said that it came as a shock to him as well, because they had never behaved like this in the past. My husband and Jenny had always been treated equally by them, so this switch up in their behavior, where they were favoring Jenny over him, made no sense. I honestly believe that my husband coming after me instead of congratulating his sister is what pissed them off, but that's just a theory. Anyway, a lot of you had also been asking about my parents' opinion on what happened, and if I'm being honest, they didn't have a lot to say. My parents and I are not particularly close, unlike my husband and his family. They did say that what Jenny did was messed up and extended their sympathies to me, but there was not much to talk about regarding their reaction to this. I had told them everything a day after the party because they called me to ask why I had been crying after Jenny's announcement. Then they consoled me for a bit and told me that they were here for me. But all of us knew that that was just something that they were saying for the sake of it. They were actually too busy with work to be there for me, and that's how it always had been, ever since I was a kid. I don't hold it against them, but there are consequences for everything, and as a result of them never really being around when I was younger, I'm not that close to them now as an adult. This is also part of the reason why I want to be a mother so badly. I've always wanted a family of my own because I knew I'd do it right. I'm not upset about my parents anymore. I used to feel bad about it, but now I'm used to it. I do have a lot of love for them, and so do they, but we don't act like a family when it really comes down to it, and I'm honestly okay with that. So Jenny reached out to my husband today. He was at work when she called him, so he wasn't able to answer, but she left him a text saying that she wanted to talk to him, and it was an emergency. She told him that she would be waiting near his workplace, and they could go grab some coffee after he got off. My husband was clever enough to forward that text to me, so around the time that he got off work, I drove to his workplace, and when my husband called me, I met him and we went to the coffee shop that Jenny was waiting at together, even though she had specifically told him that she only wanted to talk to him and not me. She didn't seem too happy to see me, but didn't say anything about it. Then we took our seats and ordered coffee, but after that, we silently waited for her to say something, because my husband and I had already decided that we were not going to start the conversation. She was the one who had called us there, so she was the one who would have to start talking. We were all silent for about 5 minutes, and it was awkward. But then she gave up, and in an exasperated voice, she said that she was sorry about what happened. She didn't sound like she meant her apology in the slightest, but she didn't stop and wait for us to react to it or even accept her apology. She told us that the other day when we had a fight with her and her parents at their house, her husband had caught on to the truth and realized that she didn't have my permission to make the announcement at our anniversary party. Earlier, he had believed that Jenny had already asked me if it was alright with them announcing their pregnancy at our party because that's what she had told him. But after that fight, he realized that Jenny had been lying and he didn't feel comfortable with it. Apparently, he was the only person in that room who actually had a spine and a conscience and could see the situation for what it was. An entire family gaslighting the victims into thinking that they were the bad guys here somehow. So naturally, he wasn't comfortable with it, and once they got back home, he had a discussion with Jenny and confronted her to ask if she had lied to him. He already knew the truth now, so Jenny had told him that she hadn't actually asked me if I would be okay with making the announcement at our party, but she had assumed that it wouldn't be an issue because it was supposed to make everyone happy, and she didn't anticipate that it was going to make me cry. However, her husband is not an idiot, and he called her bluff immediately because he had learned during the fight that Jenny had known that I was struggling to conceive before she made the announcement. So there was no way she believed that making the announcement at our party was going to make me happy somehow, and they ended up getting into a fight after that, where her husband accused her of making that announcement at our party on purpose just so she could add insult to the injury. He said that she knew that this was going to break my heart, and that's why she did it. She had lied to him about having my consent so she could make that announcement at our party and make matters worse for me. She had done everything intentionally and on purpose. Listening to her narrate whatever her husband had said to her was super satisfying because my husband and I felt like somebody had finally been able to see through all her BS. But that's not why she was there to meet us. Apparently her husband said that he was not going to talk to her or forgive her until we forgave her and had left that day itself. He hasn't returned since then, even though she has been trying to contact him non-stop. He wasn't returning any calls and had made it clear to her that he was not going to entertain her until we forgave her. So now, as a last resort, she had come to us and was pleading with us to forgive her and tell her husband about it. My husband and I are not particularly proud of what we did next, but it was much needed. We laughed in her face and told her that she had earned this, and now she was on her own because she had intentionally hit us where it hurt the most after pretending to be a friend to me. We were not going to forgive her and accept an apology that she didn't even mean. My husband told her that she could tell her husband that he was making the right choice by staying away from her because a person as cruel and heartless as her really wasn't fit to be a mother. She tried to manipulate us by crying, but that wasn't going to work because she and her family hadn't cared when I was crying. And now, I didn't have to care either because I knew where I stood with them. And it was about time that they learned their place in our lives as well. We went back home and didn't look back. We don't have any idea as to what is going to happen to them next, but I really hope that her husband files for divorce and gets full custody of the child. Trust me when I say this, that's what is best for the kid. Hi people of Reddit. I forgot to mention in my previous update that I did receive the results of our tests. Neither my husband nor I have fertility issues as such, so we just need to stay strong and power through it, and that's quite a relief because I had honestly started to think that there was something off. So we are going to continue trying, and now we will try to be a little less stressed about it because this is supposed to be joyous and not stressful. I guess that's what we were doing wrong in the first couple of months. Also, Jenny and her husband are getting divorced now. I guess they'd already been having problems, and he's filing for full custody from what I know. Her parents are obviously blaming me for all this and think that I am the root of all their troubles. But my husband and I have pretty much cut all ties with them and have blocked them everywhere, so they can't get through to us anymore. We have also told all his relatives that we will not be attending any events where they might be present and have also mentioned our reasons. Most people understand where we're coming from and have told us that they will only invite us and not them because Jenny's actions didn't go down well with most of my husband's extended family. I would feel bad for them, but they brought this onto themselves. Not much that my husband and I can do. And that was it for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.